Steeking is basically a way to create openings in knitted tubes by cutting into your knitting. Some people found that it was way easier to knit a tube and then add the sleeves after the fact, rather than knitting a bunch of little pieces and then seaming them all together. Steeking is used in traditional Nordic sweaters for armholes, and you can also use it to turn a pullover sweater into a cardigan. You can also use it in fair isle knitting so that you don't have to work any of your complicated colorwork patterns flat, eliminating the need to learn to purl while stranding colors, and also reducing the number of yarn ends left over from changing colors. Traditional steeked sweaters used sticky, not-so-soft wool yarn so that the strands would stick to each other like Velcro. You can also use other non-wool yarns or even knit in a solid color, but you will have to reinforce your steek. You can reinforce your steek by sewing a line of stitches up either side of the steek. This technique is useful in those cases where the yarn doesn't readily felt itself or is at a larger gauge than traditional colorwork. The cut line will be between the first and last stitches of the round. A line of stitching one stitch to either side of this cut line will help stabilize the cut edge. It may help to use a contrasting color of thread. This will not be visible in the finished piece. Once the steek has been cut and the edging knit, a sewn-in piece of grosgrain ribbon will help keep the edges from fraying. Lay your piece on a flat surface to help with sewing. With a sewing needle and thread, sew a running stitch between the first and second stitches to the right of the center cut line. Be sure to catch the floats between every stitch. Sew right through the yarn. Turn your work and backstitch down the same column of stitches. To backstitch, run the needle under and out as a normal stitch, but begin the next stitch halfway between the beginning and end of the first stitch. This will create little loops of thread in the fabric that can't be pulled out. Be sure to make many tiny stitches and pierce the yarn with each stitch if possible. Do not pull the thread so tight as to pucker the fabric. The more time you take in this step, the stronger the edge will be. Repeat the sewn line one stitch to the left of the center cut line. When both sides have been sewn, lay the piece flat to cut. Using very sharp scissors, carefully snip every float going between the first and last stitches of the round. Go very slowly. Snip one float at a time. Be careful not to cut the sewn binding.